It would not have been possible to produce all of the sessions and content for Punchback Print and bring you all of this content for free without the help of our amazing sponsors. So without further ado, here is a quick word from one of them.
More than half of brand owners and marketers select their print providers based on their ability to provide unique ideas to enhance print, offer the newest environmentally sustainable production technology, and proactively educate them on special print effects.
Welcome everyone to the afternoon session. Let me just share a screen. Okay, so a little bit of background to myself. Chris Knighton, I'm from HP. I'm the global head of sales and business development for our PSP solutions. My job is not to talk about HP devices or presses or any of these things. I'm here exclusively to talk to you today about some of the trends that we're seeing across the industry. And in particular, I'm focusing on my particular area of importance and interest, which is helping to drive more volume, more traffic to print service providers around the globe. Ultimately accomplishing that in a way that is as productive as possible, as efficient as possible, and importantly, has as much margin in it as possible for yourselves. So this is an area that I've been focusing on for a number of years now. Formerly, before joining HP, I was the CEO of an organization called OneFlow. We were the OEM provider of an automation platform, which was acquired by HP last year. So I've got lots of experience in working with print service providers around the world, and importantly, some of the biggest buyers of print in the world. And that's what I intend to share with you today, hopefully providing some interesting insights. But we're here today to talk specifically about, if I can get my mouse to work, future-proofing of your own business. And in particular, are you ready for the next year, next 5 years, especially given today's climate? Do you have a plan to grow, to optimize, to control your organization, and importantly, accomplish what you need to from a business perspective? So the good news is you're not alone in facing many of these questions and challenges, and I guess some difficult times that we're all facing at the moment. But there are a number of print service providers that we've been working with over the last few years that have really demonstrated their ability to embrace a lot of the trends and a lot of the changes that are occurring across the industry. So I just thought I'd share a few examples with you here. So we've got a company called Schatzel in Germany, who we started working with in 2016. They started with a small number of orders, and importantly, within a matter of 3 years, they were processing 3.5 to 4 million orders. The number of brands that they were working with grew from 10 print buyers producing in a fully automated way through to 51 by the end of 2018. That's now up around 70. And then moving to the right, we have another organization that many of you will be familiar with, a company called Proco in the UK. They started working with us in 2016, and by 2018, they were processing about 40 million individual items through our automation platform. And the number of brands that they were working with have grown quite considerably, from around 5 through to, it's now around 40, I believe, 40 or 50 that they've got coming through our platform in a fully automated way. And I'll come on to more about how they've accomplished that and why in just a few moments. There's another couple of examples here. Inkworks added about $1 million per annum to their business and grew 30 to 40%. And another one of our customers, Superior Bindery, added about 200,000 books within 7 weeks, again, in a fully automated way. So what's driving the need for this automation, and why are these businesses able to accomplish that type of growth? So if we look at not just some of the print PSPs, but also some of the buyers of print, that are changing how they're going about buying print. We've got some examples here. So today we have HP's working with over 500 of these brands that have connected to us in a fully automated manner, and we are submitting those orders through to our print service providers. So those print service providers are using our systems in around 40 countries around the world. That's not the HP entire portfolio of countries, of course it's not, but our automation platform is today servicing those brands in around 40 countries. Now that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of print jobs that are being sent by hundreds of brands to a network of print service providers around the world so that it can be produced. So what's led to this change over the last few years, and importantly from a PSP perspective, what are some of the barriers to potentially embracing that change, and importantly, how do you capitalize on it? So one of the things that I want to talk about specifically is the transition to online orders. By 2021, there's going to be about $5 trillion worth of, sorry, someone's just contacting me in the chat. Okay. Yeah, there's about $5 trillion worth of e-commerce sales that's going to be accomplished next year. So why is that relevant to print service providers? Well, it's particularly relevant because the types of buyer and the profile of buyer is changing. We're seeing a fundamental shift to online print orders. So historically, we've had order takers, sales reps traveling around the country, etc. Fast forward 5 years, 10 years from now, that's not how the buyers of print are going to be buying print from you. Today, we see around 75% of B2B buyers now saying that they'd rather be buying from a website, it's more convenient than buying from a sales representative. And indeed, 93% prefer buying online rather than from a salesperson. The reality is that we've all become expert online shoppers, and that's how we're buying things from a consumer perspective, and therefore that's the direction of travel within our businesses and organizations. So we've seen a massive uptick in online commerce in print over the last few years. This shift will continue, and there are a number of drivers there. Consumers are going to continue the shift to the convenience of online buying, especially given today with social distancing. But there's also a new type of customer, one that doesn't want to engage in a traditional purchase cycle. This customer group has the potential to send thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of orders per month. So the key to you as a print service provider is how you tap into that order traffic. Now, the challenges or the barriers are your existing processes today. Often when it's telephone or email-based orders, there's lengthy quoting processes involved. There's a lack of e-commerce platforms and infrastructure just to deal with things like payment, visualization, proofing. There's very little automation end-to-end. So the reality is that even today, most print service providers are relying on those road warriors knocking on doors and closing deals on phones. So for PSPs to capitalize on this fundamental shift to online orders, as has been embraced by many other print service providers that we're working with today, there is a need for a number of changes. There's a need for standardized pricing models. There's a need for you to have an API so your online and integrated customers can connect and submit orders to you in a fully automated way. It has to be lights out. And as your balance of work changes over time, you probably need fewer order takers for your traditional sales, which, let's face it, can be an expensive resource. So that may be a good thing. In some of our customers that we work with regularly, I was visiting one only 2 or 3 months ago, and we walked into their front office, and it was pointed out that there were around 40 desks made up of various people, account managers, order takers, commercial people, etc. And those 40 members of staff dealt with about 100 orders per day in that organization. We walked further down the corridor and there were 2 individuals. And these 2 individuals processed 15,000 orders per day in a fully automated way, where the orders were coming in, connected to the organization, and the systems were then responsible for every aspect of management of the production and finishing and shipping thereafter. So these are the things you need to think about. You might even need a web to print system so that you can continue offering online ordering to some of your more traditional customers. There's always going to be a need for strategic account management, especially with your high value customers. So we're not diminishing that at all. All we're talking about here is that over time, there is going to be an increased shift to more and more of your orders coming from an online origin. So get ready for it and start asking yourself the questions: what are we doing about it? How are we going to embrace it? The next trend that we see is around localization and globalization. Now, that's a bit of a contradiction in terms, but the key drivers here are, irrespective of whether we're talking about an app, a website, a print broker, photo book, GCP, poster, 3D, or product of any type, brands are expanding globally. And by brand, I mean anyone who buys print. We're not talking about a Mondelez or a Procter & Gamble here. We're basically talking about any buyer of print with any budget, from the very smallest to the very largest. They are demanding rapid time to market and short delivery SLAs. As consumers, we all want Amazon's rapid delivery model. The brands therefore need access to local production, irrespective of where they're domiciled. They want fast onboarding, and they want standardized methods and an integrated job submission. And importantly, they want a common way of getting status updates back to their own systems. So for small print service providers, they often don't talk the same technical language as these brands. But more importantly, irrespective of your size, in terms of your PSP, more commonly, you don't have exposure to these global opportunities. So we at HP want PSPs to be stronger. We want them to join a global community, one that HP is presenting directly to brands and to print buyers. Now, this is an initiative that we only launched early this year, and we've already got hundreds of brands in our pipeline. So it's really simple. HP is setting out to provide the tech platform, which means that you don't need to build it yourself. So the third trend that I want to talk about is supplier centralization. So brands want convenience through a single gateway. They want access to a diverse range of products, and to be able to produce those globally. Basically, any country, any product, that's how it needs to work. They also want to avoid duplicity of efforts, and that often manifests through multiple integrations and different systems. So many of the brands that I touched on earlier today are leveraging our single gateway, because they know that when they want to bolt on another print service provider in another country delivering a complementary product, then they can do so without having to go through having to create a single integration with a new print service provider. All of that adds cost, it adds risk, and it reduces speed with which you can go to market. So from a PSP perspective, building integrations requires ongoing, lengthy, often expensive development. All ideally, and you want technical firepower as well, and the tools to deliver that. All ideally without having to build everything yourself from scratch. So importantly, if a brand fails to deliver forecast print volume to you, and you've done your own point-to-point integration to that brand, you substantially risk losing a lot more on the project, because you've had to invest in that technical expenditure. You've had to take the risk yourself. So the PSP can end up with inflexible, manual, non-scalable infrastructure, which is different for each of the brands that they work with. So this is problematic for the brands, it's problematic for the print service providers. So to capitalize on this, HP is actually providing a free solution for brands to integrate. Now this is important from a print service provider perspective, but print buyers can accomplish secure connectivity and outsourcing with HP Brand Center. So HP is providing this capability at zero cost to the brand and to the print service provider. And all of our solutions, by the way, are reliant on you not having HP devices or having to print on HP devices. Brand Center provides standardized job submission, routing, status updates, and new accounts are set up in minutes. So it's really quick for you to be able to connect to a brand so that you can receive orders from them. The next, I guess the most important out of everything that we've talked about so far is trend 4, which is automated operations and manufacturing. The challenge here really is that digital transformation is here to stay. It's here to stay. It's only going to accelerate. What they think has estimated 20% of print service providers are evaluating their workflow systems right now, and certainly over the next 12 months. So if you're one of these, there are a few factors that you really need to consider. And by the way, none of this will come as a surprise in terms of the shift to online, the need for online connectivity between customers and suppliers, because we're all seeing it happening in every touch point across our lives. And in fact, we're integrating with many of these experiences on our mobile devices. And a lot of this comes under the umbrella of what we call, or what's called Industry 4.0. I encourage you to look at your leisure. The number one thing to consider is that you will only get real value from any replacement of your workflow system if you ask the question, will it connect your customer orders directly to the shipping company's systems for label production at the back door of your factory, and automate as much as possible in between? If the answer is no, then you're not considering the right solution, as it will only solve a few of the growth and transformational challenges that you're going to face. It's estimated that over 60% of PSP labor costs are post-press, yet so few companies have considered so few PSPs have considered how to squeeze more from their existing people, from their assets, from their equipment, often without having to spend hundreds of thousands on devices. So this is one of the reasons why we've set about developing a solution called SiteFlow. From the outset, it's been designed as a tool to help print service providers like you deal with shorter runs, higher order count, automated product workflows, improving productivity and efficiency through a user face that requires configuration and not coding below the bonnet. So today, our smaller print service providers that we work with that are using SiteFlow are processing a handful of orders per day. The larger ones that we work with that take advantage of our enterprise and pro capability, they are processing 80 to 100,000 orders each day, certainly during peak periods. And we have print service providers everywhere in between. So the chart on the left here illustrates in the gray bars just how much opportunity there is for end-to-end automation. These tasks are all reducing bottom line performance. Just finally then, here's some more data from Keypoint Intelligence and InfoTrends, estimating that potential savings per traditional print job can be around $20 to $30 per job. And that's only for automating 3 pre-press tasks using our solutions. On the right, we also have an estimation of savings through automated job ticketing, batch creation, imposition, and manufacturing. So from a financial saving perspective, it's a no-brainer to be thinking about how you are automating and future-proofing your business. In terms of the challenges, or I guess some of the questions that print service providers are asking, it's often a build or a buy. So to be able to receive the orders from the brands, connect to the brands with an API, to be able to have an end-to-end production workflow that enables them to shift their traffic today, their volume today, further towards automation and online orders, is do they build or do they buy? So this is a question that I've been asked a number of times over many years. And a few years ago, I was having conversations with managing directors of various businesses that were saying, Chris, why would I need to consider a solution like this? I've got a team of 5 developers. Well, now those organizations are saying, Chris, I've got a team of 10 or 15 developers. I definitely want to consider an alternative automation platform here. So the question I'd pose is not necessarily should you buy, but more a case of should you subscribe and pay only for what you use. And that's what HP can offer. So that's how I'd like to conclude today, just really by opening up for some questions now at this point, and happy to answer any questions as they arise. No questions coming so far. I'm happy to provide a little bit more information, but just thought I'd pause. Okay, well, I shall carry on and give you a bit more background to the production platform then, and some of the tools that we have available. So from an HP site flow perspective, it is an entirely end-to-end production management platform. It deals with automating your workflows, and importantly, it's a single scalable solution. So we had a customer last year who submitted 100,000 orders onto our platform, and we processed around 2 million files for that platform, and we were processing, I think it was about 35,000 API calls a second. Now that's the scalability that brands and print service providers do not need to build themselves if they can take advantage of a scalable cloud-based production management platform like SiteFlow. So in terms of an end-to-end overview of it, and importantly what it does, something's happened here with the video, sorry. Apologies. In terms of an end-to-end overview of all of the key capabilities, or the major capabilities, the platform deals with every aspect of order submission, API connectivity. We basically have software development kits that we make available to brands so that they can get connected very, very quickly. That's an activity that's typically completed within a small number of days. But importantly then, the orders are then submitted through the platform, through the API, via Brand Center, or indeed a direct connection with a website or ERP system. Thereafter then, the system will look after every aspect of production. So that's ingest of the files, it's pre-flighting, EPM checking, job ticketing, barcoding, scheduling, imposition, automated batching and ganging, and importantly, sending your batches for maximum production efficiency to either an HP or non-HP device. And that can be anything from laser, inkjet, dye sub, you name it. If it can be printed or even just picked, then we can deal with it. Importantly, it doesn't stop there. So the system also looks after all of the workflow across finishing. And that then means that you are dealing on your factory floor no longer with individual jobs. So if you are a typical jobbing printer and you're dealing with 100 jobs a day, and you're working on a 5-day SLA, you've typically got 500 jobs on the floor at any given time. That's clearly relatively straightforward to manage on clipboards and whatever systems you've got, but not when you're dealing with 1,000 or 5,000 or even 50,000 orders a day. So that's where the system managing things in production batches really is a key strength. And then finally, the system will also integrate with all the major carriers, so the DPDs, the FedExes, the UPSs of this world, and on a single barcode scan will create shipping labels and customs documentation, critical of course for when we're leaving the EU over coming months, and all of that is fully automated. So one last thing I would like to share with you is just in terms of some additional resources that are available. I believe these will be made available following the session, but importantly, if anyone would like to reach out to us, please do so. The email address is listed here. We'd be delighted to field any questions either now or later on any of the topics that we've discussed today. We feel our PSPs have to adapt and diversify before they stop being growing trends or start being the normal. I think the change is already happening. Last year, I think over the last 12 months, we'll have processed about 300 million items on our platform, and we're seeing growth now across a number of our PSPs. Certainly even during these times of COVID, there are 4 to 5 times the volume that they were typically processing during peak season in November, December last year. And what it's meant for many of these businesses is that it's actually made them more resilient. So while they're more traditional general commercial print orders are down, from a B2B perspective or B2B2C perspective at least, their volumes are actually substantially up. I don't think it's going to be overnight, but I definitely think that we're looking at a material shift across the industry over the next 5 or so years. Next question. How does the standard pricing work, and how do we get in touch with end customers? So the standard pricing is very simple. For our brand center solution, there's no charge associated with it. For our site flow solution, there's an entry-level model which carries 0 subscription per month, and you typically pay, I believe it's £1 per line item. But then once you then increase your number of line items and you move on to a pro or enterprise plan with us, there's a subscription fee associated with that, but that fee can be as low as 3 pence per line item. So if you're dealing with many hundreds or many thousands of orders, typically that's the best approach to take. What we also see is that through adoption of the platform, a lot of customers are able to retire a number of their other systems and typically take advantage of our site flow platform as more of a backbone that they can integrate with via API. Or alternatively, if you're a smaller print service provider, then you have the opportunity to use it really as a bit of a one-size-fits-all solution that enables you to take care of all of those activities that I've already touched on. In terms of getting in touch with end customers, we are now focusing very heavily on building a brand community that we are looking to not only grow in every country around the world, but also we want to expose that brand community to print service providers that are on our network. So watch this space, but we're now getting to the point that we're beginning to release print bulletins, we call them, to print service providers that might be good candidates for producing for a particular brand. Additionally, there's no issue, or there's nothing preventing you reaching out to many types of print buyer, apps, vendors, websites, etc., And some of that comes from equipping your sales team with the skills necessary, and even just a toolkit, so that they now have in their kit bag of things that they can sell direct connection to you as a PSP. So we've seen the print service providers that are embracing this change being very, very successful with it, because they're specifically targeting their sales reps with getting out there and speaking to the owners of websites and companies like photo books, calendars, greetings cards, even general commercial print. If it's sold online, there's a requirement to route it to either a single print service provider or to multiple print service providers. Next question. Chris, with these trends you're discussing, how long do you feel our PSPs have to adapt and diversify? I think I've already touched on that one. Hi, what's the next area for development for HP with regards to improving workflow automation in the future? Well, I think there's a huge amount that we're already doing in terms of workflow automation. I think we've already positioned ourselves in the market as having the world's, I guess, most extensive infrastructure, most highly scalable infrastructure, and there's a lot that happens below the bonnet to make sure that when a brand submits hundreds or tens of thousands of orders in an hour, for instance, then we can spin up thousands and thousands of servers, meaning that you don't need to build and deploy that type of firepower yourself. But we regularly, and in fact on almost on a fortnightly basis, we are releasing new features across our product portfolio. And that's how we've advanced our workflow automation over the last few years to firmly position us as number one in that sector. So that's not something that we're going to stop. That is something that we will continue to do, we'll continue to focus on in the years ahead. It's my job to get more print service providers, more brands, all connected, so that we have the most incredible platform where it is ultimately the ubiquitous go-to way for a brand to connect to a print service provider. So it means that for every print service provider that joins that community, you become part of the club. You become part of the community, able to receive orders from those brands that we want to attract and get onto the platform. Question, what would you say is the single biggest challenge facing the SMEs you work with, and what tangibly can SiteFlow technology like it do to help overcome the challenge? That's a good question. I think as a smaller print service provider, a key challenge is you don't often have the wherewithal, the skills, and technology can be quite terrifying. And you've got a challenge. You've got to make a decision whether you embrace technology because that's the future and you have to, or you suffer the consequences of not. So for me, it's not a case of if, it's more a case of when. So back to one of my earlier trends that I touched on, and one of the questions that you ask is, do you build or do you buy? A lot of organizations have gone down the path of believing, actually, this is really simple. I can get a web developer and a programmer, and we'll be able to quickly cobble something together that will give us the ability to receive orders or to hook into this company's website that wants to send us orders. I categorically discourage you from doing that. You might save a few pounds, dollars, euros in the short term, and by that I mean within a matter of weeks or months. But the thing that I can absolutely guarantee is that you'll be living with that decision for the months and the years ahead, and you will not be able to scale. Take advantage of a system like SiteFlow, and we can guarantee that you will be able to scale. Your feature set will continue to expand. You don't need to go through any technology refreshes. It's done for you behind the scenes. and importantly, you can grow as part of a community. And for the first time, you can start taking APIs out to your customers to say, absolutely no problem at all. You want to get connected to us? This is how you do it. Next questions come in. The story of how you built SiteFlow is quite something. Can you tell us a little of it, and what drives your own passion? And do you feel print has a strong and bright future? Crikey, a lot there. The story of how we built SiteFlow was myself and two other business partners, Nigel Watson and at the time Gary Peeling. We observed what was happening across the industry, and there were a very small number of players, PSPs essentially, really beginning to take a massive foothold on digital print and being able to manufacture for the larger online ordering companies like Photobox, and so on. And we saw an opportunity. And the opportunity was that we could provide a platform to print service providers that would enable them to connect to brands. And importantly, we also had a number whose growth was being held back. It was being shackled because they were unable to connect to print service providers. So we set about developing SiteFlow, not exclusively as a production management platform, but importantly as a way with which brands could get more traffic to PSPs, because we knew that by driving the volume to the print service provider, we'd be onto something that would be gold. So we basically set about putting a new company in place. We looked at what Precision had did with its own technology, but we basically decided to park that and build something which was completely new, completely cloud ready, scalable. My background is in cloud computing, and along with my business partner, and that's what we did. And we in 2014 we told HP, this is what we're going to do, and HP said, that sounds amazing. Why don't you come back and tell us when you've got 10 customers? And that's exactly what we did within a matter of months. And HP at that point then invited us to become the OEM provider of the HP SiteFlow solution, which was something that we agreed in 2015. We then launched it in parallel with Drupa, or at Drupa, in parallel with HP at 2016. It's gone on a huge, the platform has extended a huge amount over that time. And that's thank you to all of our customers who continue to give us feedback and provide us a nod and a point in terms of where we should be taking it in order to accelerate the growth and scalability of those businesses. So those are companies like Precision Printing, like PurePrint, Prime, Proco, most of the big online digital printers in the UK, Europe, and now North America. So I became part of the HP organization in July last year, when HP basically decided it absolutely wanted us as part of the future. And I guess that underlines the second part of this question, which is, do you feel print has a strong and bright future? Categorically, yes. I think the type of products that we are going to be manufacturing is going to change fundamentally. I foresee a huge change to personalized print, and I see that happening not just in personalized family items, things like photo books and calendars, but really in every aspect of marketing literature, and importantly, personalized labels and packaging, you name it. I think that's where the future is. And I think the types of relationships that print service providers are going to be having with brands going forward are going to be very, very different. I think we're going to see for a lot of those print service providers that fail to keep pace with change and adapt and transform how they're delivering to those customers and how they're servicing those customers, I think a lot of those unfortunately will go. Now, you know, you could argue that that they might be going anyway, but importantly, that will create opportunities for others. And I think we all have to ask ourselves more often than not in these times, from a technology perspective, what am I doing to innovate? What am I doing to keep one step ahead of the competition? Because if you're not, I can guarantee you will no longer be ahead of the competition. So I think the future in print is very, very strong. I think it's going to be very different. I think we're probably going to be printing far fewer copies of anything that we've typically dealt with in the past. And I think that the margins are potentially going to be higher than we've experienced before. And I believe that that will come through automation. And that's one of the reasons why I believe it's important that PSPs consider platforms like the SiteFlow solution, because we truly can help you get more volume, we can help you reduce your costs, we can help you be more productive, and we can help your bottom line performance. Thank you very much, everyone.